Through a digital haze, looking for love in modern days. 21st century dating decoded. The official Speed Mingle Podcast. Yeah, 21st century dating decoded. The official Speed Mingle Podcast.
They say that by 2020, we were supposed to have flying cars and robot butlers. Instead, we have relationship anarchy, AI wingmen offering personalized pickup lines, and more labels for our love lives than a designer warehouse has seasonal stock. The future of technology is here, but the future of connection? That's what's truly glitchy. In a world of endless swipes, ghosting on demand, and algorithmic matchmaking, how do we actually stay authentically connected to another human being? Welcome back to 21st Century Dating Decoded, the official Speed Mingle Podcast. I'm your host, Don, and I'm here, as always, to help you navigate the confusing, often contradictory, and sometimes deeply emotional matrix of modern romance. We're cutting through the noise, one digital date at a time. Today we're tackling the biggest one of them all, the M word, monogamy. It's the relationship model that has been the cultural default for centuries, but its reign is facing a serious challenge. In a year where projections suggest nearly 50% of people surveyed are either actively participating in or openly looking for something they define as, quote, unconventional, whether that's polyamory, swinging, ethical non-monogamy, ENM, or something entirely new. Is the traditional one-on-one dream officially vintage, relegated to the dusty archives of Hollywood rom-coms? Or is it making a passionate, high-definition comeback, re-energized by a new generation setting intentional boundaries? We're going beyond the simple open versus closed conversation. We're diving deep into the psychology, the social pressures, and the evolving language of love. We'll look at the sudden, viral rise of polyamory, tolerating non-monogamy for convenience or out of fear of loss, and what that tells us about modern compromise. We'll analyze the significant psychological shift in how Gen Z and millennials define a partner. Is it still a sole source of emotional and physical intimacy? Or is it a primary relationship structure that allows for satellite connections? Most importantly, we're asking, what does commitment mean in 2026 when your partner's dating app profile is just a swipe away? From the historical context of marriage to the neurobiology of attachment in a digitized world, our deep dive is titled, The Monogamy Debate in 2026. Emerging perspectives on modern relationship boundaries and the evolving nature of commitment. Whether you consider yourself strictly exclusive and happily traditional, you're ethically open in navigating the complex rule sets of ENM, or you're just trying to figure out if seeing each other means what it used to when your parents dated, this conversation is essential. It's for anyone who has ever questioned their relationship default. Stick with us. Let's decode the chaos and find some clarity in commitment. A convergence of recent, highly visible public commentary, particularly from cultural commentators and comedians, has precipitated an extensive and often contentious societal debate concerning the continuing salience and future trajectory of traditional monogamy. By overtly challenging deeply ingrained historical tenets of relational exclusivity and fidelity, these heterodox viewpoints have elicited polarized reactions, necessitating a profound and frequently uncomfortable interrogation of the established commitment paradigm. The ascendance of the unilateral physical boundary, one of the most provocative and intensely scrutinized facets of this contemporary discourse, revolves around a conspicuously permissive and nuanced stance toward physical exclusivity. A growing segment of individuals within modern long-term relationships is articulating a sophisticated degree of comfort with, and in select instances, an almost intellectually appealing acceptance of, their primary partner engaging in physical relations outside the core dyad. This phenomenon is fundamentally distinct from established open or polyamorous relationship models. Critically, this acceptance is frequently presented as a unilateral boundary. The individual instituting this boundary may personally lack the inclination or desire for external physical encounters, yet they grant explicit authorization for their partner to pursue them. This one-way physical allowance serves to frame the arrangement not as unrestricted license, but as a singular, deliberately constructed form of commitment. It is predicated upon the premise that the concession serves as a demonstration of unqualified trust, and an acknowledgement that a partner's sexual requirements may operate independently of the central emotional affiliation. This framework endeavors to dissociate physical desire from the perceived security and stability of the primary partnership. Redefining infidelity, the emotional red flag, perhaps the most radical and contested component of this novel relationship perspective, is the fundamental reconceptualization of betrayal. Within this progressive viewpoint, the authentic, underlying threat to a relationship's stability is not a transient physical act, which is often intellectually minimized as biologically insignificant, but rather the systematic cultivation of deep and sustained emotional intimacy with a third party. In a significant and challenging deviation from conventional standards, a new set of highly specific red flags are being delineated against non-sexual intimate acts. These are posited as the genuine, insidious precursors to true infidelity, a form of emotional cheating considered substantially more detrimental than a physical encounter. Shared humor and confidentiality, the exchange of inside jokes, the co-creation of private language, or the consistent disclosure of confidential information that establishes an exclusive shared internal reality separate from the primary bond. Quality time and shared interests, routinely pursuing structured hobbies, ritually co-watching a specific television series, or regularly dedicating recreational time to another person. This sustained investment generates a shared history and ritualistic bond that structurally rivals the emotional architecture of the primary partnership. Emotional prioritization and reliance. Any emotional dependence or attachment that begins to compete with the intimacy, attention, support, or emotional first responder role allocated to the primary partner. The core transgression is the diversion of essential emotional energy. The philosophical undergirding of this argument is that a temporary or exclusively physical encounter can be inconsequential and readily managed, whereas a sustained, shared internal and emotional existence with an external individual represents the authentic, foundational jeopardy to the couple's interwoven identity. Cultural ramifications and expert counterpoint. These prominent public statements and the resulting pervasive debate have sharply bifurcated observers and relationship specialists. Proponents of this personalized boundary setting commend the radical transparency and candor inherent in these custom-built relationships, arguing robustly for boundaries to be grounded in individual psychological needs, mutually agreed-upon stipulations, and personal comfort, rather than a rigid adherence to fixed societal mandates. They characterize this as a mature evolution of the commitment contract. Conversely, critics emphatically contend that the attempt to surgically decouple physical intimacy from emotional connection is a precarious, psychologically intricate, and ultimately untenable strategy. They maintain that physical acts inherently generate an emotional bond that is impossible to fully regulate or contain. Relationship experts and clinical psychologists have introduced a necessary, moderated counterpoint, issuing cautionary statements that asymmetrical or one-sided arrangements may often function to undermine rather than reinforce foundational trust. Some experts theorize that these dynamics may, in certain circumstances, denote an underlying pattern of avoidant attachment. Within this psychological mechanism, the person granting the permission is perhaps subconsciously maintaining emotional distance and insulating themselves from the vulnerability, intimacy, and total commitment requisite in traditional, absolute exclusivity. The enduring appeal and resilience of traditional monogamy. Despite the disproportionate media attention garnered by unconventional relationship models and alternative lifestyles, many experts assert that proclamations regarding the, quote, obsolescence or demise of monogamy are substantially premature and overstated. Contemporary data, including relationship surveys conducted as recently as 2026, consistently indicates that the vast majority of individuals seeking a long-term life partner continue to overwhelmingly prioritize fundamental attributes, such as a partner who is honest, faithful, and emotionally available. Professionals engaged in the fields of matchmaking and relationship counseling uniformly affirm that mutual, reciprocal fidelity remains the central, aspirational objective for the preponderance of long-term romantic commitments. These professionals caution individuals against feeling obligated to adopt an overly easygoing, permissive, or compliant posture regarding core boundaries merely out of an anxious desire to retain a partner. Ultimately, this significant and sustained cultural discussion underscores an undeniable trend. Contemporary couples are increasingly empowered and motivated to actively negotiate, personalize, and collaboratively define their specific terms of commitment, rather than passively accepting standardized, universal relationship blueprints inherited from preceding generations. The contract of commitment is now explicitly subject to negotiation, whether one adheres to traditional monogamy or the contemporary structures of a polycule. The paramount conclusion of today's program is that the formally prescriptive regulations governing romantic relationships in 2026 are definitively obsolete. This relational evolution signifies not a decline in commitment, but a clear imperative that intentionality in relational dynamics is now more essential than ever before. Success within the contemporary dating paradigm is not contingent upon the classification, be it open monogamy or a strictly exclusive partnership, but is instead measured by the degree of transparency employed. One should not permit ephemeral trends or algorithmic suggestions to dictate relationship parameters. Rather, personal values must govern these pivotal decisions. Engagement, subscription, and connection with Speed Mingle. First, participate in the discourse on social media. Access our official Instagram profile @the Speed Mingle and contribute your perspective. Is monogamy an anachronistic framework, or does it represent the definitive high-fidelity connection? Post a gem to indicate an exclusive lifestyle preference, or a link if exploring alternative models. Next, follow and endorse the program. Should you have derived value from today's deliberation, we respectfully request that you subscribe and provide a 5-star rating on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Your support is instrumental in assisting fellow seekers in navigating the digital dating environment. Subscribe and follow. Ensure receipt of every forthcoming episode at https://21t-centurydatingdecoded.riverside.com/ And don't forget to listen and view podcast platforms. Our content is accessible on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and Deezer. Content viewing. View our program on the Speed Mingle TV Network via YouTube, Roku, and Fire TV. Please search for Speed Mingle TV Network or the HRB TV Network, the dedicated channel of our parent company. Here is a brief overview of Speed Mingle, the efficient frontier in relational connection. If this episode, focusing on the necessity of transcending prescribed dating narratives, proved beneficial, we strongly recommend that you activate your subscription immediately to gain access to all subsequent content. Submit a 5-star review to facilitate the discovery of this program by new listeners. Share this episode with an acquaintance who could benefit from an upgrade to their poorly illuminated, filtered profile photograph. Please forward the link. Their future romantic endeavors will be positively impacted. We are strategically positioned to furnish the efficient frontier for this nascent era of dating. Our platform provides a comprehensive suite of instruments designed to mitigate risk and maximize opportunities for genuine connection, thereby transitioning participants beyond unproductive swiping toward the establishment of substantive relationships. Secure your participation. We strongly encourage the reservation of your position for a forthcoming Speed Mingle event in your immediate locality. Proactively mix, match, and mingle to diversify your social portfolio. Speed Mingle is currently redefining digital courtship through 4 distinct, intentional, and highly efficient modalities. Speed Mingle Anywhere, currently available, facilitates authentic, face-to-face video interactions from a private setting, effectively surmounting the constraints of anonymous swiping. Speed Mingle Social, launching this week in select markets, provides relaxed, non-hosted weekly gatherings at established local venues to encourage spontaneous, informal connections. Speed Mingle Happenings, live events presently occurring in your region. These meticulously curated, dynamic, activity-based events are engineered to foster natural engagement without reliance on conventional superficial conversation. Speed Mingle 1-to-1, scheduled for launch in spring 2026, offers personalized, low-pressure meetings with local individuals whose pre-vetted interests ensure an efficient path toward foundational compatibility. Our commitment is to offer diverse asset classes for connection, thereby preventing the concentration of all emotional investments into a singular strategy. A successful relational portfolio is invariably predicated upon intentionality and genuine connection. Until our next broadcast, this is Don. Maintain an open disposition, establish explicit boundaries, and always be cognizant of the fact that, within a landscape defined by continuous digital consumption, an authentic connection represents the most significant discovery attainable. We extend our sincere gratitude for your listenership and viewership of 21st Century Dating Decoded. Until our subsequent episode, remain deliberate, maintain protection, and consistently date with a defined purpose.